Hey, Beth. Is my microphone working okay?
Yep.
Good
Can you
deal.
hear me too?
I can.
Good. That's right. I was on a Teams meeting with the same laptop and I could not get the camera to work. But with Zoom, it works. It's so crazy. At work
Yeah.
with my desktop at work, I never have any problems with Teams meetings or Zoom or anything, but with laptops, it's just always crazy.
Yeah. I find when I go
Can you
back
hear
and
me
forth,
okay?
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, no,
And we can
everybody's
see you too.
Am I frozen? You guys frozen?
Yep.
Back.
Hi, Mark. Yeah,
So
you're
you
freezing a little, Bob.
and you're muted, Mark.
At work?
Yep.
All right. I'm on for 7:45, so I'm going to take off for a little bit. I'll see you in a little while.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sounds good. Yeah, Bob, you're frozen.
Yeah. What do we do in those? Where did Bob go? Okay.
I think he probably disconnected and is trying again and so that he has a better connection or something.
I know we're supposed to be visible at all times on this commission, but at the lake, I don't know about other people, but I have I mean I'm on Zoom all the time and I have to go off camera a lot of times because everybody freezes and sometimes I get knocked off and so I don't know what happens when that happens, but
It's okay. Yeah, you do what Bob's doing. Like just it's fine if you have a bad connection and we can't see you or you keep freezing, it's fine to you know, just disconnect and try to reconnect and see if you can improve the situation. And if it's bad enough that your camera's just not working, I mean, it's fine to have a meeting where we just hear you.
okay.
Yeah. But all right, it's 7 o'clock. So I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Shutesbury Conservation Commission. This meeting is being recorded. And I think we have everybody. Bob's back with a better connection, I think. Oh, yeah.
Can you guys? Okay, you are either frozen or playing a really good trick on me.
You're kind of coming and going.
You know what? I'll try.
Let's just give Bob a second. Can you hear us, Bob?
While we're waiting, Joyce, would you mind? Joyce, could you identify your?
Let's see.
I think that was Bob's connection. Um, Go ahead, Mateo. What were you asking?
I was just going to ask if Joyce wouldn't mind identifying herself for the minutes.
Guess that's whoever has the name Joyce, we would like your full name for the meeting minutes.
She said she's gonna get it up there.
Oh. Okay. All right, I see Bob, I think. There. Seems better.
Yeah, I've got you on the tiny screen with the phone.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yep.
yeah. I don't know why the computer internet's not working. I've shooed all of the teenagers out of the house, so I should have a good signal. But anyway, I'm on the phone. I can hear you fine.
okay, great. That'll work. Thanks for figuring that out. All right, well, I don't know, did Joyce get her name up there? I don't see her anymore. Anyway, let's start with the agenda. Number one on the agenda is me, comments from the chair. First, I just wanted to welcome Mayor. I don't think we did a real official welcome. We kind of threw it into the end of our last meeting. So just want to welcome you to the Conservation Commission. Yeah, and I think you've already kind of gotten set up with a notebook from Mateo and some basic information.
I'm getting there.
Getting there.
Yes, I have some of it. I don't have a notebook yet, but I did look it over the regulations that we're supposed to be looking at.
Okay, yeah, I emailed those to you. So yeah, but if you have any other questions, reach out to me, reach out to Mateo. I'm happy to get you going. And I wanted to talk about our next meeting about the regulations. I don't think we're gonna get to them tonight. So I had sent out a couple of dates to do another meeting that's really just gonna focus on the updates to the regulations. I think we were leaning towards January 30th. Sound right to people?
I think that would be okay with me.
Okay. Scott?
Yeah. I think I was looking. I think that works for me as well.
Okay.
And what,
Jan? Mayor?
what time would it start?
I thought we would do 6 to 8 again, like we did last week.
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay. Jan?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, all right. Well, let's do that then. I think that's the best way to get through the regulations. So for any members of the public who are here to really see us to continue our working on the regulations, I don't think we're going to get to it tonight, just so you know that. All right, item number 2 is minutes from January 2nd. Does anybody have any comments or changes? Oh, Mateo's sharing it. Excellent.
No no changes, a comment, and just how fast those were turned around. That was super impressive. So thank you for getting them out so timely and time to review it, but I didn't have any corrections.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I wanted to screen share just because Beth had a couple of revisions to this one paragraph, and I didn't have a chance to send out those revisions to everybody, so I wanted to present those changes to you all so you could see what the changes were.
Yeah, I was just sort of adding in some corrections to what we talked about there about it being agriculturally exempt. All right, if nobody else has any other comments on the minutes, and you've had a chance to look through these changes, looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes as revised by Chairman Wilson.
Great. Second?
I'll second.
All right. Douglas?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Rowan?
Aye.
Fox?
I'm gonna abstain because I came late to the meeting, so
Okay. And Wilson, aye. All right. Next on the agenda, site visits update. Jan,
Site visits. On December 15th, we go all the way back there. Beth and I went out to Kestrel's Bog to just talk to them. It's sort of informational, talk to them about some changes they might want to make to their trails and what we thought. They're gonna put together an NOI, so we'll see something coming from that in the future. On December 17th, I went over to the library for another visit. In they had spread hydro seed from the last time I reported on the erosion stuff there. That was followed by snow, then heavy rain that resulted in erosion around the retention basins. The chair had recommended mulch prior to my visit, but none was applied. And significant erosion on the steeper sides of those basins had occurred in 3 of the ponds. And the pond closest to the road had actually breached and the water was running, outside the fence beyond the soil erosion fence into the field there. Again, I recommended mulching the steep slopes of the pond and filling the breach. We also looked at where they planned to run the electric line. In order to run the electric line, they had to push out the erosion fence in one spot, and they kind of modified the site plan for how they're going to run the electric lines. And I just heard at the last meeting, at the last tour, that the utility company, in fact, approved that plan. So they'll go ahead with that sometime in the future. Beth and I went out to Sirius to have a look at the area where they plan to site their wind turbine. We didn't find any wetlands, so there was no jurisdiction for us there. Nice spot where they're going to put the turbine, I'll say that. And then on December 31st, we were supposed to do a site visit at the library, but the construction people had closed up due to the fact that it was New Year's Eve. So we didn't do it that day. We did it the following week on January 7th. And that was a little bit sad. They hadn't placed any mulch on any of the steep sides of the basins. Even though it was really frozen the day I was out there, we'd had that pile of rain before, again, another rainstorm. And there was a good bit of erosion around at least 3 of the basins where they had plugged the hole in the basin that had breached, that held. But there are other places along that same fence line there on the west side where dirt had gone over the cocoa snake tube and was starting to hit the plastic mud barrier. It didn't go outside, but like we're due for another rainstorm. So the next one could be a problem. In my site report, I did suggest to them that was going to be a problem if it continued, and they're going to have to clean out the entire basins and shake the rocks out to make them work. And that doesn't seem to disturb them at all. They seem in fact willing to do that in the future. I did tell them if they if they put mulch out, it wouldn't be as bad. But again, not lots of interest. Some of the plastic silk fences had gone floppy again, and I suggested they staple them up. They usually get to that. And I suggested that they replace some of those silt rolls where it had overtopped and pretty much, I mean, they're almost underground in some spots. So we'll see how they respond to that. Our next site visit is scheduled for January 21st, and the next one after that is February 4th. So we'll see what happens, I guess.
Well, thank you so much for going out there so much and keeping an eye on this whole thing. So you're saying that the socks that are laid right next to the silt fence are really taking a lot of silt and are kind of falling apart a little bit, and then but a lot of the silt and the sediment is getting blocked still by the silt fence. It's not necessarily going beyond the silt fence into the wetlands, but
Right.
but
They had
maybe
kind of it's like it was sort of a belts and suspender kind of program there.
yeah.
So the plastic fence caught whatever went over those socks, but in a few spots on that west side, it's sort of on a hill, and it's along where they're building, and they tramped around and everything, and it was a problem.
Yeah, no, I think if the silt socks are starting to deteriorate and really aren't doing their job, I mean, even though the fencing is behind them, I think we need to ask them to replace, the tubing.
It's the
It's
recommendation I made. I don't
deteriorated.
think you could just pull them up and put them back down again. I don't think that would work.
Well, they get so heavy, and I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
them you just cut them in the end and let the mulch stay. But what they can do is put fresh on top.
The
They
only
can
thing the
just put a new
contractor
stuff.
did do was on the north side of the library building, on the east side of that basin, there was a fair amount of erosion there, and they had construction equipment located right along the edge of that basin. So they moved the construction stuff away, and they put some riprap right along the edge of the road, kind of where the driveway is, which
Mm.
may have helped prevent further erosion there, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's like as long as the erosion isn't necessarily making it into wetland areas, that's one thing we want to make sure. And it sounds like maybe the silt socks need to be new silt socks need to be placed in a few areas if
Yeah.
the socks are really deteriorating. And then the other issue I think you and I talked about is that those sedimentation basins, eventually the idea for them is that they're going to be able to infiltrate. And if it keeps that the sides of those basins keep washing down into the bottom of the basin, then future infiltration is going to be a problem. And so I think as long as we've told them that in the end, if when the project's getting closer to being ending, if we do a site visit, we see there's a lot of sediment in those basins, they're going to have to clean them all out.
they
That'll
seem
be-
resigned to that.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
get the paper trail, but they don't seem to mind, so they're happy.
Yeah.
They said they would reshape them and do whatever was required, so that's kind of what they're looking at.
Yeah. It's part of construction, and for them that they're probably thinking, get done what we're doing right now, and in the
Yeah.
future, at the end of the project, we'll clean those out once the sides get vegetated, but we
Yeah,
just need to,
it's all within the envelope of the work site so far.
yeah.
Quick question, Jen. Thank you very much for your detailed description and also the good work you've done on the other site visits too. So when you say there's a breach, is there anything that's leaving that's getting over the bales and into the wetland or wet meadow?
While the breach was open, the only thing that was leaving the envelope was water,
Okay. So no
not sediment. It was the sediment was still in the basin.
Okay. So water was kind of like coming off the top, and you couldn't see like a trail of dirt or sediment going
Well,
into the
there was a
wetlands.
little bit, because probably a 2 foot wide section of the basin, it had kind of a rim that washed out. So they've gone back and filled that with mulch. Ultimately, they'll have to go back and reshape the end of that. But it's holding now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that it sounds like there's um repeat failures and things like that. And I definitely would like to go with you on that January 21st site visit to have a look.
Sure. It's
And
the 21st, not the 20th, right?
20, that's a Tuesday, yeah, 21st.
Yeah.
Jan, I had a question. So being as we can't really, you know, you can go onto the site and I haven't been onto the site because the fence around it. So can you describe like what the site is like in terms of basins and what you're looking for when you go there? And
Well, I can tell you that it's either a quagmire of mud or it was a skating rink last time. But the whole construction site is surrounded by two layers for the most part of erosion control. There's a buried plastic curtain,
Mhm.
and in front of that is the sock. So if the water is running and taking sediment with it, it's got to go through the sock usually and through the plastic curtain in order to get out into the wetlands beyond the construction zone.
And-
Some of what we're talking about though is they already, before they even started building the library, they built the drainage basins that are going to be the catchments.
Mhm.
And they did not get grass seed or any kind of seed or anything out before the rains came. So those have eroded on their steep ends. They generally have a steeper end on one side than the other.
Okay. And are the basins gonna stay there after the project is done?
Yes,
Okay. And how many are how many basins are there?
there's 1, 2, 3, 4, I think. Is it 4?
I think so.
Yeah,
And are they in the north side or
they're
or
all on the west side for the most part.
west side? Okay.
And there's, wetlands on the other side, but the water doesn't tend to go out on that side.
Well, so just on Bob's question, I think Bob was wondering if sand and silt have actually gone past the erosion control and gotten into the wetlands, but it hasn't gone past the silt fence.
Where the breach was, I don't recall seeing any, if there was any, it was very minor amount of anything. It was mostly just water running off into that field.
But so it was actually getting through the silt fence
Yeah.
because the silt fence collapsed.
No, it was still present.
Oh, so the water was filtering through it.
Yeah, I guess that probably was what was going on, yeah.
Okay, well, so then if
There
it's
was a lot
working
of
the way
water
it should,
running. There was a lot of water running that day. We'd had a huge storm
yeah,
and
But-
the basin was full, which caused it to wash out at that end.
yeah, it washed out the back of the basin. I'm just trying to picture this. It washed out the back of the basin, and then that flowed to where the silt fence and the wattle are. And then the water obviously had to get through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the idea is that hopefully the wattle and the silt fence were catching.
Yeah, they
The
pretty much
sediment.
were. Yeah, it was water, but it was clearly running directly from the basin.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure that the silt fence and the wattle took a good hit.
Yeah.
And maybe again, that's the kind of thing that needs to be kept up so that if it rains again and that same thing happens, that silt fence can handle it again.
That's kind of been the caution every visit,
Yeah.
that those fences are starting to get a little war torn, and some of them
Yeah.
are getting a little bit holy, generally higher up than the ground level. I mean, it's been a while, and if any of the construction machinery or whatever has been going by, those are definitely worse for wear.
Yeah. Tightening them up and adding another layer of fresh new wattle is something we can certainly ask for
Yes.
anytime we see them being destroyed. But thank you so much for going out there. All right, and do we have any upcoming site visits? The only thing I
the
could
two-
think of was before our next meeting, we'd need to see 375 Locks Pond Road. It was a administrative approval application that we're gonna see in our February meeting.
What was the address
maybe-
on that one?
It's 375 Locks Pond Road.
What was this one?
It's an administrative approval. I'm guessing it's trees. I don't actually know the application yet because I haven't looked at it. But I think if you to get the name and contact, I think Mateo's got it.
Okay. We can do that. Otherwise, it's just the two, every other Tuesday on the library so far.
Okay. Great.
So when do you go to the 375 Locks Pond Road for that?
We'll have to schedule it with the homeowner.
Gotcha.
Yep. All right. Item number 4 is land management update. Scott, do you have anything new?
Maybe one update. In going back and forth on the West Quabbin Woodlands parking lot, it sounds like our best way forward actually was not to proceed with a contract, but rather work with the highway department to put that in. And so I do think that was related to the highway department. I think they would use the same grant funding to construct that work. And so I'm anticipating that probably will get done here in spring of 25, I would think, when conditions are a little bit better, but who knows? It's open now, so maybe they could do it earlier. So that's one update. I do, just to put on folks' radar, I do think there's additional work needed at Southbrook Conservation Area. I would think it's probably been a year and a half ago. Several of us took a walk through Southbrook and walked the trails. There are some sections where the trails go through resource areas, and I think there some degradation to the wetland habitats that are there. And so I think we need to look at doing some rerouting of some minor portions of some of the trails that are there. There are also some structures there, crossings that are used by hikers, but also by the snowmobilers that utilize some of those trails. And I think we're going to need to look at replacing some of those as well, and maybe adding a new one. So that's work yet to come here, and I'd like to tackle that here in 2025.
Go get them. So we had talked to Mateo's part of this conversation, the $1,000, I think, that was left of CPC money for Southbrook. I think it was originally sort of described as money for the consultant to map out trails, but and then maybe Mateo can chime in if we can kind of change the purpose a little bit of that $1,000 to doing maybe some bog bridging or something. I think there's been some emails back and forth.
Yeah, so the CPC will be talking about that at our meeting on Monday evening. There are some constraints on using CPA funds for reasons that were not originally part of the grant the town meeting made. But I think that's something discussed by the committee.
Okay, great.
I think it would also maybe just to do a little bit of work here in the interim on the process for getting that done. I think my understanding is once we kind of have the scope, then we might talk to the highway department about the scope of work there, see if that's something they can do, and how much grant funding they would need to utilize to complete the work.
That's good.
Okay.
I've worked a little bit with in Amherst with some of the snowmobile folks, and they would be a good group to reach out to, just to help, either actually physically help with stuff or provide some funding or something. They're a good group, and they're interested in keeping the trails maintained.
I did reach out to the gentleman that we had worked with before in Southbrook. He built one of I see Miriam's hand is up, but I reached out with him and visited some about trying to utilize the same process we did for one of the other crossings. And I was back and forth, and then I haven't been able to recontact him. So he might be on vacation or away, but I do plan to continue to follow up with him as well.
Are you talking about Evan Jones, or wasn't Evan involved with that bridge, I think?
I have to look up his name. It might have been Evan, actually.
Yeah.
That's familiar.
Yeah, okay. Miriam, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I was just gonna remind the commission that, yeah, Evan Jones worked with us. I thought it was a really good process because it happened very efficiently. He organized a group of volunteers and Coles Lumber donated all the materials. We were able to give them some design plans to use, and then we supported them in putting together an emergency certification request because one of the bridges was about to collapse. And the highway department came out and declared it an emergency. So it just happened like in the space of like 10 days, which was great.
Yeah, I remember that. That was really great.
And
Yeah,
it is Evan that I've been corresponding with. So
okay, and so he hasn't responded.
I was talking with him back in November, and then it didn't. He might have left or gone out of town, so I need to maybe get back with him now in the new year.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Scott, for all your
Yep.
efforts. It's all great. All right, it's definitely past 7:15. Item number 5 is a public hearing regarding notice of intent for 58 Lake Drive. So I'm gonna read my little spiel. This hearing is being held as required by the provisions of Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth, an act relative to the protection of wetlands, as most recently amended, and the Town of Shutesbury General Wetlands Protection Bylaw. And I see Ward is here. Ward, are you
Hi.
gonna present? Hi.
Sure. So this is, this project is for, we'll call it the squaring off of an existing deck. That's, the existing deck is just outside the 50-foot no touch from it's a retaining wall along Lake Wyola in the backyard of, the existing residence there. It's going, the expansion is supposed to be about 10 feet parallel to the lake shore and about 15 feet in depth away from the lake. And the deck would be extended and a stairway is proposed to be put underneath the existing deck so they can access the lawn next to the lake. There's no way for machinery to get access into the back. So all the work is going to be done by hand tools. We've got at the site visit, Jim Burns said 9 holes. I think it's actually 11. That's what we filed the permit for 11 hand dug holes to put in sonotubes to put supports for the structure, which will be pressure treated, and the decking will be I think it's Trex, which is what pretty much everybody uses, which is what the decking would be expanded to. So in order to provide erosion control, proposing straw wattle between the work area and Lake Wyola, and any material that's in excess, which there probably will be some because there's going to be concrete poured in the sonotubes, will be removed by hand from the site.
Sounds good. I don't know if anybody wants to see the site plan. Do you have it, Ward, electronically or?
Oh, you're asking a Luddite to do something. I have the site plan. I can hold it up like this. That's about as high tech as I can get.
I can,
No, it's not working.
Uh,
No, I'm sorry.
Well, let me try sharing. I have it. Let me see if it'll work. Oh,
I was born in the wrong century.
is
the
that
one-
you? Is that you, Mateo?
that's what you're looking for.
This is
so
the
that-
architect. This is
so,
the
yeah.
architect. This is the architectural plan, not the plan view. But yes,
Are you gonna try again, Mateo? Because I have it, I think.
Oh, here we go. I got it.
Okay.
A lot of things open right now.
My wife's actually a technology teacher, so I need to up my game. I should get her to tutor me. Yeah, you can see the area there crosshatched is the approximate deck extension. It's really not a square. It's more of a funny triangle, but that's where it will be. And it's actually, as you can see on the plan, it's slightly further from the edge of the lake than the existing deck, but it's close to 50 feet.
Great. All right, yeah, you
So
know,
it's all lawn underneath it now. There is one a bed of with wood chips that's like a garden bed underneath there, but there are no trees or shrubs or anything. It will be removed. It's just lawn.
okay. Yeah, for one thing, it's not going into the 50-foot no disturb zone. There's erosion control proposed. When we did our site visit, we did walk up to the bank because one of Mark Stinson's comments was to sort of make sure that there's vegetation growing along the edge of the bank there. And we did see that they have a very nice vegetated kind of top to the wall there with grasses and other plantings that's already there along the bank.
Mhm.
There's no dock.
Nope.
And it's all going to be done by hand. So I have the impact of those 11 holes is very minimal, in my opinion, to buffer zone, and it's outside the 50 no disturb. So I have no issues. Do other commissioners have questions or concerns?
Bob here. I wanted to ask, so this deck, water will be able to just percolate through it, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
It'll be similar to the other deck. There's, cracks between the planking, so the water will just go right down through. And the soil there is all very sandy, so there shouldn't be any problem with runoff. The soil underneath it is very sandy.
gotcha. Yeah, I believe I'm with Beth, and I'm grateful for the word for the site visit that we did. It's no closer to the lake than what's currently there. I think it's a fairly low impact project. The fact that you won't have machinery down there, it'll all be done by hand. Dirt that's dug up will either go back in the hole, and the extra concrete, if there's any, will come out by hand. So I think it's a very easy project to permit.
Any other comments or concerns or questions from the commission?
No concerns.
Okay, Mateo, can you say it? Thank you. Are there any comments or questions or concerns from the public? No, all right. Seeing no comments or concerns, I'm looking for a motion to issue an order of conditions for 30, what are we? This is 58 Lake Drive. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I am looking for a motion to close the public hearing for 58 Lake Drive.
Motion to close the hearing for 58 Lake Drive.
I'll second that.
Okay, Rowan,
I have to recuse myself. I'm
right,
a butter.
right. Okay, Khan,
Aye.
Douglas,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
and Wilson. Aye. So we'll put together an order of conditions. And we are, since this is such an easy, small project, we are having an extra meeting on January 30th, which is primarily for the regulations. But I mean, we can certainly, I can put in the order of conditions.
And there's no big hurry. I mean, not that, I'm just saying this, the way the ground, they're not going to do this until it warms up. So.
Okay, well, we'll put an order of conditions together and bring them to either that meeting or our February meeting for approval.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Ward. All right, what time is it? 7:37. All right, our next, I think it's at 7:45, so we have a few minutes. Anybody have any stories to tell?
I have a
No.
question. It pertains to the thing that's coming up next. I looked at the draft CR and lots and lots and lots of stuff. There was nothing in there, and I don't know that it should be. I just don't know where it would be. There was nothing in there about the payment. Was that something that lands somewhere else?
I think we want to do that. And we have the right to ask for it. And I did talk to Gabe, the interim town administrator, and she said it's easy to set up an account for that kind of a thing. I think at this point, this is still really a draft CR, so we should really be looking at more the what's allowed, what's not allowed, make sure that's the kind of stuff that we like the way it looks in that world. Then it needs to go to Donna and for all the legal language that's in there. If you look at it, eventually it has to be signed by the select board, it has to be signed by the commission, it has to be signed by the town administrator. It's something that's going to take a little while, and it'll be good to hear Mark's what he's been advised from Berkshire Design on the steps that have to be taken. But I mean, that is going to be part of it. And maybe he'll shed some more information on that too. But I think also Donna can help us with that part of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where is this lot?
It's off of Leverett Road,
Mhm.
kind
What
of almost across from Pelham Hill Road. There's, those apartments that are there.
Uh-huh.
If you take a right off of Pelham Hill Road, there's a sign there that says for sale right now.
Right. Yep.
So it's behind those houses that are right on
Oh,
Leverett Road,
okay.
back there. Yeah.
Does that provide access to that strip of land that was Cole's? That was behind the highway department and behind Mark Watkins's place?
Michael DeCary says no. So I don't think so. No.
And is Mark Whiteman the applicant, or is he?
He's the owner.
Uh-huh.
So he's
Right.
he has sort of a larger parcel there that he's selling, and somebody will probably buy and put like a single family house. And the planning board, as part of his approval to be able to do that, required a conservation restriction, some of the land to be put into conservation. So he's got a plan. We should send you all the documents, but there's a plan that's got the acres that are going to go into the conservation restriction, set aside. And then this is the actual document, the conservation restriction that'll go with that land, talks about how that portion of the land will be treated.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you get what do you have copies of, Mayor? Do you have copies of the CR or anything?
So
No.
far. I have, I just have the regulations that you and Jan both sent me. But I don't have the rest of it yet. So.
Okay, well, we'll get you this one because the one we just did is over at this point, but this one's going to be around for a while, so we'll be sure to send
Okay.
you the CR and the map and all that. So,
And has this been discussed before? Numbers, this H151?
Yep.
So I wouldn't be able to participate in it because it's been discussed before and I've missed those meetings.
There's Mark. Previously there was a different version of the CR that we looked at, and
Okay.
now he's had it redone to fit more into what the state requires for a CR. So this is the first time I've seen with it. This is the first time we've all seen this new conservation restriction document.
Okay. Okay.
And I'll get it to you tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah. Miriam, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I heard you mentioning that you might approved the order of conditions at a February meeting, and I was looking at the calendar, and I think 21 days takes you to January 30th. And you've got to issue the order of conditions within 21 days after you close the public hearing.
So today's the 9th of January, so yeah, well, we are actually having a meeting on the 30th, and I did just say to him that we would probably do it either that meeting or the February meeting, but yeah, we do have to do it on the 30th, so we will do it on the 30th.
You just might want to double check. I did the count quickly, and so it's either 21 days or make sure it's not 22 days. You know, it depends on how you count them, but you might want to just double check the numbers, make sure you got it.
Yeah, well, actually, Miriam, when I was in Amherst, there were situations where we weren't able to get something done like this within the 21 days, and all you have to do is ask the applicant, and if the applicant is in agreement, then it doesn't actually have to be issued. The order does not have to actually be issued within the 21 days after the hearing is closed, and it sounded like Ward was definitely fine with it not, you know, getting to him immediately. So I think we're fine. And it's basically 7:45. So Mark,
Hello,
hello.
how are you?
Good.
That's better. Yeah, this is a pretty complex process. I didn't realize how intense it was. I'm glad I hired Berkshire Design Group. They did a nice job. And actually, I'm in the dark, so here we go. So I don't know how you want to go forward. I guess what I've done is marked up sort of each page where I had questions, and I don't know if anybody on the commission has had time to really review it. We only got it to you a few days ago. But I guess the first thing I would discuss is that, and I think Beth, I heard you saying something about it, is that the original CR that SVE started was for an NHESP, being very restrictive. And I couldn't understand why. I'd seen many CRs in the past, but I'd never seen one be this restrictive for just a conservation restriction. So it makes sense now that that's what it was for. And now that you were able to get me the correct CR, and I was able to get Berkshire Design Group to work on it, and it seems much more realistic and reasonable. But that opens up some items for us to discuss. So how would you like to proceed?
I think, you know, I don't think we need to go through word by word. I think we just start the commission, people who have read it, we can just start sort of making comments on the different sections where we have concerns, if that works for everybody. I guess before we even do that, what did you learn from Berkshire Design, I guess, about the process? So we're going to look at this tonight, and we're probably going to mostly talk about things that are allowed and things that aren't allowed under it, and what you know, what we would like to have in those sections. And then, so this is gonna, when it gets to a more final state, it is gonna have to go to our town attorney is gonna have to review it. You know, because it is a legal document that the town is gonna be signing.
Right.
So there'll be that phase of it. And I guess I'm wondering then after that, did Berkshire Design talk to you at all about, you know, you've got to get the select board signing it and town administrator signing it, and I don't know, did they talk about process?
They talked a bit about it, that it appears to be a little different in each town, but the overall is that one seems to go after it, sign it. So in the case of Shutesbury, it has a select board, not a mayor, so that would be the entity would sign it. You would sign it also, the Conservation Commission on the third page and fourth page, and I guess it is. There's a municipal certificate for you to sign that says the Undersigned Conservation Commission hereby certifies that proposed conservation restriction is in the public interest, and then describe the public benefits. And of course, that's all described in the document already. So then I understand that once the select board, I thought the select board would approve it after the state approved it, but it looks to me like the select board approves it prior to going to the state, which surprised me, because if the state makes any changes, then I would assume we have to go back to the select board to get the changes approved. So I was a little surprised, and I'm going to verify that with Berkshire Design Group. You've done this before, so you probably certainly have more background in it than I do on
Yeah.
exactly how that works. But am I correct that it goes to the select board first for signature? It seems-
Yeah, all those pages need to be signed, notarized and everything before sending it to the state. And then the state, it will take their time in reviewing it. And yeah, they could propose some changes.
It does seem backward in that fashion. You know, you would think that but maybe it's the state doesn't want to take their time to review it unless they know the select board has signed off. I guess that makes sense in a
Right.
fashion. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm happy to talk about areas, especially the logging area. I think that's our forestry area, but I'm sure there's other areas that you guys have interest in discussing. So why don't you throw them out and we'll start going after them.
Okay. Right. Okay. All right. All right. So yeah, my first comment is the forestry section. So that is page 7, number 11.
Yep.
So that seems like something that wasn't in that previous version of the CR. And personally, I don't think we would want to have that in there, but I mean, I leave it to other commissioners to talk about it a bit.
So what Berkshire Design Group suggested to me, because this is part of a standard CR, they didn't put that in. It's in the standard CR that you had given us, or that you had given me, and that I had given to them, and that they asked what we should do with this because obviously, parts of it could be real invasive. So after I read it a couple times, I realized that there's different sections to it. Obviously, the first one that does make some sense to me is C, which is harvesting for personal use, as long as we come up with a board foot amount, or whether it's cordwood that allows people to go in and be able to get, wood for fires, things of that fashion. I'd like to discuss that. As for permitted activities, requirements of forestry stewardship, all those take the grantees' approval. So by approving them, saying that you would allow that to be in the conservation restriction doesn't say you're allowing those activities. It says you're allowing this to be a potential for the future if somebody brings you a plan and you decide as a commission, that as a grantee, that you want that to be allowed per the plan they've created. But you have the right, as I read this, to say no. They can't do it without your approval. So with that said, I don't think that's too hazardous to have in there. I don't have a problem with you taking it out if you're more comfortable with that, but I would like to be able to keep the ability for somebody to be able to harvest to a certain extent, as long as it's done in a reasonable way. And I'm sure in here it explains how that has to be done to make sure it's reasonable and they're not just devastating an area inside the controlled area. What's the board's thoughts on that?
So you're saying not A and B, or not any kind of forestry that would involve, like the forestry management plan and all that. You're okay taking that part out, but you're just looking to keep the C, which is the harvesting for personal use.
Well, I'd like to keep C for sure, and then I'm willing to talk about the A and B. And let me see if I can read this here. Requirement of a forest stewardship plan before any forestry activities occur in the premises. Grantor shall submit a forest stewardship plan to the grantee at Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation, and any other required state agencies for approval. It shall be prepared by a forester, include provisions designed to comply with the recommended activity of the guidelines, address how the forest stewardship plan complies with paragraph 2B10 and effective for a 10-year period and shall be resubmitted once every 10 years. So if it doesn't meet the grantee's requirements, then as my understanding, and your attorney probably should get involved in that, you guys can deny it. So I don't know if it hurts having it in there. It's just that if the board has a feeling they don't want to have forestry done at all in there, then perhaps we should talk about taking it out. But the board has the right to say no to it, as I understand it, even if it's in there. As time goes on, we never know how things change. this piece of land wasn't buildable until a few years ago, ability to to be able to build on it. So there might be a reason in the future why the Conservation Commission or the town would want that to have the ability to have forestry done. At this point, it sounds like the board, at least Beth's comments are that she would rather not have that. So I don't know if we want to strike it or if we just want to make sure that the Conservation Commission has understanding between them that you would not approve a plan at this point if it was brought to the board. And I don't have any ulteriors on this, you know, I'm not looking to hold on to the parcel. And I don't know if it makes it any more saleable by having somebody be able to do a forestry stewardship process, but I do think it makes it more saleable and more realistic to allow them to be able to harvest an amount for themselves for use. Boy, that was long-winded.
Yeah, as a Bob Douglas here, as an individual commission, I don't see any objection to doing an individual harvest, including the notification that you mentioned.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah. Mark, it's Scott here. I wanted to follow up a little bit on it's trying to sort out what's prohibited and what's allowed here. And when I read through, and thank you for getting this to us, in Part A under the Prohibited Acts, number 4, it says any adverse impacts to vegetation, cutting, removing, or destroying trees, shrubs, grasses, or other vegetation. So it looks like cutting or removing any vegetation is prohibited.
So that's how legal documents are written. It drives me nuts. I've dealt with these long enough, and if you do a lot of planning board stuff, you start to realize they'll say these are the items that are not prohibited, and then it says notwithstanding the prohibited acts and uses described in paragraph 3, the grantor may conduct or permit the following acts and uses other premises provided they do not materially impair the purpose and or conservation values. So that's under B, permitted.
Well, that's where I was going to next. And I'm familiar with these, but I'll say one area it can cause confusion or misunderstanding is when you have a reserved right and that is prohibited, and or a reserved right that's allowed, and a grant here through the CR that prohibits the same act. And so I'm just noting that I think some work would need to be done under the prohibited and the permitted. You know, under permitted, it allows for pruning, trimming, cutting, mowing, removal of brush. Now, albeit it says that would be to for insects, fire, disease, but also to maintain the condition of the premises as documented, which seems like a hard standard to really weigh in on whether or not that cutting is allowed or not. And then we get to the forestry provisions, which would allow for cutting if done under a plan, if approved by the commission. And then finally, the personal use cutting. And I'm just pointing out, I think this, from my standpoint, and having some experience enforcing these, you know, so it's clear because all the parties on this call won't be the ones, you know, enforcing this into the future.
Right.
And when I read this, it's really, I could see how it could be difficult to discern whether or not the cutting of vegetation or trees is allowable on this or not, and who would get to say yes or no to that.
So I think I agree completely with what you're saying, and I think that I'm just going to reiterate what I said earlier, is that this is how it's done in legalese. Unfortunately, I don't think it should be done like this. In planning board documents, it's done like this all the time. It'll say these are prohibited uses, and then it'll say notwithstanding the foregoing, to the contrary, you are allowed to do these uses within restrictive covenants. So what they're doing here in B is saying notwithstanding the prohibited acts described in paragraph 3, the grantor may conduct or permit the following acts under these circumstances. So what I think it should say, I'm not a lawyer, but what I think it should say is under prohibited acts, it should say, I'm just going to paraphrase something of the fashion that it's not allowed except as allowed under B, permitted acts and uses. You know, so that would clarify that there are times where it can be done, but it's done with restriction, so that you can't just go in there, start clear cutting shrubbery and stuff. You can't go in there, start cutting trees down. There are things you have to do, like getting grantees approval on a lot of those things to be able to do it. So maybe just a simplistic, it might be simplistic enough that you, under prohibited action, that we pen in there that says, it's not allowed except as discussed or as specified in section B or something.
Yeah, I think for my part, Mark, the way it reads actually in the prohibited works, and I have seen that done. And then under permitted would say that notwithstanding the prohibited, but then it would need to define something more specific that would make it easy to say, you know, vegetation removal is not allowed, but it is allowed for these certain things. And I think the way that it's worded here, I think, you know, if you are allowing it for hazards, that's clear. Disease, insect or fire damage, that's all clear. Maintaining the condition of the premises as documented in the baseline report, that's less than clear to me in terms of what that would be. So I would, for me, I would strike that part.
What if we did this? What if we put in, I didn't mean to interrupt you, so I apologize.
No, go ahead.
I had a thought come to my head and they don't last long these days. What if we put that anything under permitted acts and uses, no, that's not going to work either. I was going to say has to be approved by the grantee, but that's already in here in specifics, you know. So like non-native nuisance or invasive species can be removed in a manner that minimizes damage to surrounding non-target species and preserves water quality. That's what you're talking about. Is like who's gonna monitor that?
Well, what I'm saying is it's not clear. I mean, you have a lot of other ways you can take out like non-native, as you just said, in number 2 there. I'm just wondering what type of removal of vegetation are you anticipating would need to be reserved to maintain the premises as documented in the baseline report? Because I already see, you know, removals being allowed to maintain the trails,
Right.
To deal with invasive species. And so it's just not, when I read that part is just not clear. And I just think we would either want to remove it or add clarity to it so everyone knows what it really means.
So just to be clear, we didn't put this stuff in, you know, this was in this document. So this is the standard that, I mean, the one that Beth gave me, that's what we're using. And then Berkshire Design Group has used that document and added the specifics regarding me and the, you know, where the land requirements are having to put in there. So it's a standard in a conservation restriction of this level. It wouldn't be in the NHESP restrictions. It wasn't in the NHESP restrictions. So it is something that is obviously approved by the state because it's already in this document created by the state. Whether the board wants it in there is another issue, because the board is making a decision whether they want to be the grantee or not on this. And if you don't get what you want in this document, I would suggest you're probably not going to be the grantee. So you want to make sure that you can have this document work for you. So I'm all ears. I mean, what you think is going to work for you, and you have a solution as to make it so it's clearer. I'm happy to listen. If you guys want to come up with a list over the next few weeks of the items you want to see removed or changed, edited somehow, I'm happy to review them and take them to Berkshire Design Group and have a discussion with them to make sure we're not doing something that's going to, you know, come back around somehow and not work. But I'm more than flexible to discuss any of them here as to how you would like to see them or see us go forward with them. Again, I think you have some protections in here because, you know, indigenous cultural practices with prior written notice or approval of the grantee. So there's another one where the grantee has to give approval, the forestries with approval of the grantee. I think that many of them have approval, like old trails, any existing trails that are shown on the baseline can be maintained up to 4 feet wide, but new trails have to have prior approval of the grantee to be installed. So I think there's a lot of area in here, trail features with prior written approval of the grantee. Constructing a bog bridge or boardwalks can be done, but only with the approval of the grantee. Motorized vehicles with prior written approval of the grantee. So I think again, I'm guessing what the state is doing is putting something out there that gives the Conservation Commission and whoever's going to be the grantee a lot of leverage as to what they allow to happen, but having those in there as possibilities. And then you guys as a board will make a decision as the grantee whether you would allow those when those times come up, when the grantor says, can I do this? And you say yes or no. They're the only concern I would think you would have if those are in there is if the character of the board changes and you don't feel, I say board, but I mean commission, the character of the commission changes and the current wishes of the current commission aren't being abided by another commission, by a new commission. But it does give the commission as the grantee a lot of flexibility to decide whether or not things are allowed or not allowed. I mean, again, if you want to make a list of things that you just absolutely feel like they shouldn't be in there and present them to me, just send me an email. I'll be happy to look at them and run them by Berkshire Design, see if they've had those things taken out in the past and how they feel about that and how it's going to work for the overall conservation restriction.
Are we gonna see the base report at some point?
Well, this is all new to me, I'm kind of got stuck in the middle here when SVE couldn't work in Massachusetts any longer, as you know, and I appreciate you getting me the correct conservation restriction. I didn't even know it existed because I didn't have an engineering company. I'm not an engineer. So I've asked Berkshire Design Group to start working on the baseline report because I wasn't even sure it was required, and they've tried to get this document to me, and they did get it to us pretty quick. They kind of pushed us up in the line. So as you saw from the email I sent to, is her name Jen or Jill from Berkshire Design Group, Jess, excuse me. I've asked her if she can then start working on this baseline. And that'll take, I'm going to guess, a little bit of work from us as well. Or there's not much out there. I mean, there's the main, we call it Woods Road that goes out there, but I don't think there's a lot of paths that currently exist or trails in the conservation areas. And we walked at Beth, and I don't remember seeing, I think Bob, you walked with us as well. I don't remember seeing much for paths out there or trails. So that's gonna, that limits access right there unless the grantee allows for additional trails being created. So I don't think there's a lot that's gonna have to be on the baseline. You've got some stone walls. We've got the Woods Road. And from what I can see on the requirements of the baseline, that's going to be about all that's got to be shown on that report. So if I can get them out there to get that started, the sooner the better.
All right, well, for me, I don't know who has, had a chance to really read through the document. But for me, my main concerns are the forestry section. So number 11, I don't really know if I agree with that. And also the number 13, which is green energy, which has to do with, and again, it does say with written prior approval of the grantee, but to me, I feel like if in general, the commission doesn't feel like we want to take on a CR that allows, construction of a big set of solar panels and things out there, there's no reason to not take it out of the CR. It's even though this is the template that came from the state, but everybody takes this template and changes it to what they want. So those two I was concerned about. I think that's about it. We talked about public access before, and I can see in here that you went with no public access, and I'm on board for that, but I wanted to see what the rest of the commission thought about that.
Well, it's also not no public access, it's public access with grantor's approval. So, and let me go back to there's a couple things you hit there, regarding the green energy. Yes, again, as the board, you have the right to say no to it. I'm curious, and you might want to ask your town council about this, whether taking it out causes an issue, because I don't know if it could cause an issue for the commission or not, because it's been taken out. I don't know if that opens a door of some sort. Maybe that's why they word it this way, that the commission, it's in, but the commission has the right as the grantee to deny written approval. And it doesn't say with written approval of the grantee not to be unreasonably withheld. You know, it doesn't say anything like that you guys are forced to give approval if they meet certain criteria. But that's a legal question I think you should ask your attorney. Not, I can't give you a correct answer on that.
Yeah, we'll definitely get the attorney to look through. Do other commissioners have other sections they want to talk about?
Or comments regarding what you just brought up, the green energy, or what was the other one, Beth?
The forestry stuff, number 11.
It's already out of the head.
Scott?
Yeah, thanks. Well, no, I agree with your comments, Beth. I have had the chance to read through it. Those two, I had concerns about as well. Just to reiterate, I also had concerns just with that. The part that we were just discussing regarding allowing for vegetation management to maintain the baseline report. I think, Mark, that's that would make sense in areas where you have like open fields or things that you're going to allow people to mow, to maintain, but I just don't see it applying here, and I think it could add confusion. So I would recommend taking that out. And then for the personal use of firewood, if that were to stay in, and I wouldn't have a problem keeping it in, but it does need to be better defined. And I think you have some of the X's in there, and I think those would have to be filled in. And if it's a half a cord, you know, per acre per year, it looks like that's what you're suggesting. You know, I think that would work for me. But those are my for the existing trails. I didn't see existing trails out there either. So I'm also wondering, do we need language in there to talk about maintenance of an existing trail if there isn't an existing trail?
Well, there's a woods road, so you know that is an existing trail. So I think that's where we're kind of
So
that's
you're about the woods road, okay?
Yeah, so I mean, you could put it as just wood road. So everything you've just said, Scott, I'm on board with. I don't have a problem with any of that if it makes the board more comfortable. I think that, like you said, you should run it by town council and make sure that you're not causing a problem for yourselves because those things have been taken out and not allowed for the board to, as the grantee to make determinations as time goes on. And maybe there's a reason they word it that way. So just checking that. But if those are the concerns, if we can keep the personal use of wood, nothing crazy, but an ability to take some tree down to be able to use for personal use, I'm fine with the other ones either being left as approval by grantee required. Maybe you can put more strict wording on there or removing them completely. I don't see a major problem with either one of those. If it was big fields or something and we weren't allowing agriculture and there weren't any endangered species, I'd have a bit of a concern, structuring it that way of being restrictive. But it does say in this document at the very beginning that agriculture will not be allowed in the restricted areas because it's woodland. So that's already been taken off the table. And if we take off the forestry except for personal use, I don't think that's unrealistic at all, unreasonable. Again, I know I've said 3 times, so just check and make sure you're not causing yourselves a problem as the grantees by removing the item completely. The state seems to have gone to a long way there to make sure there's a bunch of stuff that's required by grantee approval.
Yeah, I mean, are there any commissioners that really want to see that forestry, not the personal use one, I guess, but the sort of the larger that would go under a forestry management plan left in the CR? No.
I think
Okay.
part of my concern with that is it's such a small parcel.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree.
I mean, I'm just thinking of also the future time of the commission to go through and review plans to approve it for such a, if, the likelihood of getting a commercial operation in such a small area to take like selective harvest of trees there. That's where I'm coming from. I absolutely believe that, proper silvicultural practices are important to maintain forest health. It just didn't seem to apply to such a small piece like this one, but.
You bring up two concerns of my own. The first is, whether the board is actually going to go out, or the commission is actually going to go out there and review this thing once a year or whatever it is, to make sure people are abiding, or whether you're going to hire somebody. The more intricate this is, and somebody has to go over and decide whether there's new trails or whether, they've taken out invasive species, and, making all the determinations is going to be very expensive. I mean, it's going to be time consuming for somebody to go out and do that. It seems like an awful lot to ask, to be able to be seen, to be able to make sure these things aren't happening. And like you said, there's not a lot of trail out there already, as long as we're understanding there's a woods road out there that goes to the back of the property, and we sort of allow that to still exist. Again, I don't see any reason why anybody would have to go out there to do anything except possibly making sure that we're, I know that land is cleaned up on occasion, to make sure there's less fire concerns, things of that fashion. So again, I think your attorney will clarify whether you can just take those out or not. And there's nothing that has been brought up that I can't live with.
All right, well, if the commission doesn't have any more comments, I see one from the public. Miriam?
Hi, thank you. Since the commission is discussing some of the details in the CR document, which I haven't seen, so I can't really comment on it, you might want to consider taking a look at some of the other CR documents where the commission is holding a CR, both to see how certain issues were dealt with, and also perhaps for the sake of consistency. I know with the CR for the West Quabbin Woodlands area, there was discussion about renewable energy. And also, I think there were some conditions about what types of trails could be built, or what the width of the trails needed to be. But you'd have to take a look at the document. It might be useful.
The other side of that, Miriam, is that there's only been a couple of these open space special permits approved, and each one had to have a conservation restriction. And I haven't gotten copies of those, but I could ask the planning board, or you folks could ask the planning board for copies of those CRs, because they'd be the most pertinent to this. It seems to make sense that it should be a template we could follow to a certain extent. You don't have to follow what's been done, but to get an idea of what has been done in the instances where a CR was created, to allow the.
Yes, I think that the CR for the old peach orchard might have been an open space plan. I'm pretty sure that was an open space plan.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's a little different use than, a conservation area, but you might want to look at that as well.
Well, we've just been graced by Michael, so he could answer that question for us. Can you get us copies of the CRs that were approved by the four of those open space special permits that were approved?
I think Mateo could do it, but there's only been two others. So there's Chuck Damari, and then there is Mark Oshevsky's property. I think we're the only two, and I'm not sure off the top who did the CRs for them. I don't think they were the same, and I don't think the town did it, but for either of them. But I think Mateo can get them because they should be on file either with us or with the Concom.
That'd be great. Is Mateo here today? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could we ask Mateo to do that? Can I? I don't think I can ask. Can the commission ask Mateo to do that?
Yeah, that would be, Mateo, if you could find those, the Damari one would be a good one to look at. Just because that one also has the sort of endowment and the the money that we're using to do the annual inspections. So that language would be good. And as Miriam said, it would be good to have some consistency with our previous CRs. There's those two that are open space, but then Miriam mentioned the more recent one of the West Quabbin Woods. So we can look at those and then also have town council just take a look at this. So we can do all those things and then possibly send you maybe a marked up version of this. If you want to send me the electronic, I can, mark it up with some of these concerns we have and then set up another meeting for you to come back.
Yep, that sounds fine. It's gonna take a while, I understand. And Michael, I think the planning board understands it as well from the conversations we've had. That I think I've got till September, but as long as we're moving forward, you guys seem like you're all right with us getting through it as best we can. It's a process and a half. Yeah, I didn't realize how long the state's gonna take. I'm sure it's not gonna be quick.
You look older than when you started, Mark.
I got some health issues. I'm trying to wrap some things up. I'm taking off for Spain on Saturday. I'm gonna go there for this winter and see if that helps a little bit. So wish me luck.
Good luck.
Sounds
like a nice place to go.
It is a nice place to go, and you definitely we want to get this wrapped up, and you don't want to deal with my inheritors. So it'll be easier with me. I gotta keep fighting.
Well, thank you for coming tonight and getting this draft to us. And we'll just kind of pull comments together, see what our attorney says, compare it to some of our other CRs and provide you some comments.
That sounds great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Good night.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Definitely past 8 o'clock. So our item 7 is order of conditions review for, I don't think I can say that last name. Is that 32 Lake Drive? We're just gonna go with 32 Lake Drive. Nikolai, okay. What you said. All right, so are you here, Megan, to present?
Yeah, my husband and I are. And we have our attorney, Jim Martin.
Oh, and Jim's here too, good.
Take myself off mute. Members of the board, in a few months, the travails and process of Megan and Stephen getting their project of their, dream cottage on the lake through the administrative process will have reached a half a decade, 5 years. And so I think you can understand why there's some sense of frustration and exhaustion on the part of the applicants. So thank you for hearing us tonight. We hope, not that we don't love seeing you, that we will wrap this up tonight. The circular treadmill that we've been running on is that at one point, the applicants were told that the Conservation Commission couldn't issue the dock permit until they got clearance from the DEP. They, long time ago, filed their application, paid their fee with the DEP for the dock permit, and they were chased down a rabbit hole for years. I got involved, and I finally got connected with Ms. Hobbs at the DEP, and she said she had assigned it to a reviewer. Unfortunately, that reviewer apparently disappeared, but recently we've spoken to Ms. Hobbs and exchanged communication with Ms. Hobbs, and she has indicated that the dock permits in the file, all filled out, ready to be signed, but she's waiting to hear back from the Conservation Commission. So it's, now not only were we frustrated about nobody responding to us, now it's this way. So we're here tonight primarily to request that the board issue a clean order of conditions so that the title can be cleared up on this. It has been really stuck, and that's not fair to them. And we want a certificate of compliance. We're requesting a certificate of compliance. That's all. Everything has been tidied up. Once we get that certificate of compliance, I'll record it. We will notify Ms. Hobbs and send her the documents that she needs to send us back the dock permit, which is really secondary at this point. Right now, these folks have not had a clean title to their property for almost 5 years. So you have all the documentation in your file. It's exhaustive. Apparently, according to Ms. Hobbs, the WP, the negative determination wasn't sent to them within 15 days, but that's back in 2020. And we're not looking to go back and, argue about that. What we're looking for, I think it's fair to say, is that, as you know, the house is built, it's been inspected, property's been inspected, it's very well done, everything is in compliance. We are asking for a certificate of compliance be issued by this board tonight so that we can record it. They'll have clean, clear title, and then we can notify Ms. Hobbs and her department that the order of conditions in the WPA that was issued, we'll send her a copy, and then she will release the dock permit to us. This is, by the way, a seasonal dock permit. This isn't like a permanent dock. This is seasonal. It's not in the water now. It came out the end of the summer and it'll go back in the spring. And so that's our request tonight.
So I'm a little confused. Have you seen the partial certificate of compliance that was issued and recorded?
Yes, but it's partial.
That was last year, so that was a separate matter.
Right.
And if I could just add a little more color, when our order of conditions was granted back in 2020, the determination was that they wouldn't, the Concom at the time, I know it's a different group of folks, but we couldn't even get an order of conditions until we filed all the paperwork for the Chapter 91 license. And there was a clause in there that we had satisfied everything that we needed to do for the Chapter 91. And so then the Concom then issued us our order of conditions. So in the intervening time, it just got lost. They used a lot of COVID explanations for that. And then we asked Jim to get involved a year ago because there was another matter regarding a trench that we worked through last year with the conservation, or it was actually November of 23 that we worked through. And that's where we had the partial, because at that point, the commission was pushing for, continued to push for the dock permit, but we've filed everything. We had the public hearing. We went through back and forth with Mr. Stinson. We had, all the plans and everything, and it was all vetted in the public hearing. So just in the passage of time, there was no one at the DEP that followed up. And then when Jim did finally get the response from the DEP said that they're waiting for the negative determination from Shutesbury, which presumably was sent in connection with our public hearing, but I don't know.
So there are two
we're in the
things.
circular reference.
There's two things. Maybe Conservation Commission file reflects that they had reviewed the Chapter 91 license application and have no further comments. So they were fine with it then.
Yeah, that's in our order of conditions.
Yeah.
Which is that, to me, that right there, that statement, and then the statement that's actually in the first F1 of the partial certificate of compliance, where the last line, the applicants also sought approval for a seasonal dock subject to approval of a license, blah, blah. That seems to answer Ms. Dobbs' question, that the Concom, the NOI included the approval of the seasonal dock. So the Concom did look at the seasonal dock in terms of its impact under the Wetlands Protection Act, which seemed to be Ms. Dobbs' question, whether or not we had. And then, as Jim just said, in the order of conditions, that the first the first condition says, the Shutesbury Conservation Commission received a copy of the Chapter 91 license application for a seasonal dock and has no further conditions. So I'm assuming if she got those two documents, she would be satisfied enough to issue the Chapter 1 license. But if she needs more, it seemed like that's what you were asking for. I think tonight, if the commission agrees with what I'm kind of talking about, we can certainly issue a letter to that effect that, you know, we can vote tonight that we feel like these documents are showing that the commission at that time reviewed the project in terms of the impact of the dock on wetland resource areas, and that was done, and this was the conclusion of the commission. So you should be able to get your Chapter 1
No,
license.
time out. It's almost 5 years. We need our deed cleared because we're just gonna get sent in circles. It's, so I can't wait on the state again. You guys are,
I guess what
the
we're
state
saying.
didn't get the stuff from the Concom that they needed, and the Concom is saying that they won't clear our deed because the state won't give us what they're trying to wait on the Concom for. So I don't, it's kind of, we just need our deed cleared. We've done
And
everything we
yeah,
possibly can. It's almost 5 years.
After the meeting in November of 2023, we agreed in good faith because we had made contact with Miss Hobbs at the DEP. So we're like, oh, we made contact. It looks like it might get going. And it's been 14 months and we still don't have it. And they finally just got back to us. And we needed to have this meeting to connect with you. So we respectfully request that we get the certificate of compliance. And part and parcel with that is we'd love it if you would connect with them and we get the permit. We've done everything in our power to get the permit. But we really request that we get the certificate of compliance because, you know, as you noted in the order of conditions, we did everything and we've continued to try to do everything. And I mean, we just want it closed out, please.
Yeah, so just so the commission understands what's going on. So this order of conditions was issued back in 2020, I think, with one condition. One of the conditions was for the homeowner to get a Chapter 91 license for their seasonal dock.
I'm sorry, just to interrupt, that wasn't, our condition was that we apply.
Yes,
And we
apply.
satisfied that.
And, you know, we
The
have,
process has, I think, since potentially changed, but our obligation was that we apply for the Chapter 91.
and our paperwork, you know, indicates that it was sent in immediately, that the fee was paid, that it was $800, whatever it was. Ms. Hobbs, you know, just as Meg said, this is back just at the end of this year, of 2024, said that she's waiting from the town for documentation of dock compliance with the WPA or negative determination from the Conservation Commission. That's all I need to mail you the signed dock fee, a dock license. But that's really secondary because everything else has been taken care of, and yet these folks don't have a clear title. The order, they need to get that cleared up. They need, for both legal reasons and financial reasons, to get that cleaned up. So we're looking for a certificate of compliance. I don't think there's anything in the records that says that they're not in compliance. If there is, we'd be shocked.
Yeah, just so the rest of the commission can see what's going on. I think I sent you guys the order conditions and the certificate of compliance, but Mateo, can you bring up the order conditions? Yeah, I asked you to bring those electronically.
Yes, I can. See here, is this the one you're looking for?
That's the certificate of compliance. I think it would be the other one.
It's
see that?
towards it's probably
Yeah.
page 10.
Keep
think-
keep scrolling, please.
Yeah, I think it's page 10 or 11 that has the,
Well,
yeah, right there.
All right, so these are the special conditions. And
So
then
the
everybody,
process at the time is we wouldn't have even received an order of conditions had we not filed the chapter 91 license.
Applied for.
Right.
So if you scroll through those special conditions, they've all been accomplished. And completed.
right, so I guess I'm gonna say, just so the commission sees too, different to orders of conditions that we're issuing now, where there's an actual condition saying that somebody needs to not only apply, but get the chapter 91 approval. I guess I'm not seeing that here. I see number one, the Shutesbury Conservation Commission received a copy of the chapter 91 license application for a seasonal dock and has no further conditions. So that's not necessarily saying that there's a condition here that they actually receive that to get a certificate of compliance. But
Voila.
the partial certificate of compliance, so that's the order, that's the conditions that were with the order. Matteo, would you mind bringing up the partial certificate of compliance? So here's the partial certificate of compliance.
I think we'd have a dock permit if the town sent that negative determination back in 2020.
I believe that it was supposed to have been sent within 15 days or something, and they claim they never got it.
Well, isn't that up to the applicant?
I
The
don't
person
send a
who-
negative
No.
determination.
No, but we sent.
They're
we
saying
sent
that so I guess just to walk through it again, I mean, we did the public hearing for the chapter 91 separate from the public hearing for the NOI, two separate public hearings. We went through all the motions with Mark Stinson at the DEP, all of that. Never heard anything, and they blamed it on COVID. But then we tried to do it, and Jim was able to find a contact with Miss Hobbs, and we went through the last 14 months, gave them everything, and now it's come back that they never got anything from Shutesbury for a negative determination. So I don't know how we would have done that. We've provided this information to her,
Right.
and this is all recorded anyways. So,
Right.
So I don't know what
Well,
else we can do.
I guess I'm just saying that there's nothing that the Concom was supposed to provide. These are the documents, and it sounds like you did send them to the state, and it sounds like the
Yeah,
state.
and they're recorded,
So-
I mean, nonetheless, but like,
Right, they're
I mean, the
recorded,
fact of
yeah.
the matter is, the correspondence that we received from the DEP states that the Conservation Commission didn't provide them with a negative determination. So I don't know, that's where we're in this circular loop that we don't know. And we feel like we've done everything in the spirit of trying to get this dock permit, and we just really would like to have the certificate of compliance, please.
Right.
So Beth, I'll read it to you verbally. I've looked through the file and confirmed that the license is drafted and prepared to be sent through to the signatory process pending submittal of documentation of dock compliance with the WPA or negative determination of applicability from the Conservation Commission.
Right, and then I think the next paragraph says, I saw
Yeah.
the email, and it says that she's gotten the order of conditions, but she doesn't feel like that, she's not sure if that order of conditions addressed the dock.
Correct.
Which again, if we're talking about this order of conditions right here, I guess I'm confused why she doesn't see that this order of conditions clearly says that the dock was discussed, and the Conservation Commission saw that they had a chapter 91 application and had no further are free of no further conditions. So it,
We're on the same page. We're singing from the same hymnal.
yeah, we are, that she should have been fine with this and she should have issued the license a long time ago.
Which is why I originally contacted the Conservation Commission to say, can we get something from you to, so we can send it back just to close this loop?
Yeah.
But I think it occurred to us that regardless, everything else has been complied with. All things have been complied with, and we'd like to get a certificate of compliance from this commission.
Right.
And if I looked at this fairly carefully, I don't see any reason why the Conservation Commission can't or shouldn't issue that certificate of compliance.
Right. Let's see. So this is the partial certificate of compliance. The applicant submitted notice of intent. Applicant, here's where it says that the seasonal dock was part of that application. This is F2, doesn't have anything to do with it. It's F4, the applicants have not recorded a valid Chapter 91 license. Pursuant to the order conditions generated in 1 and 3, the order conditions did not relieve the applicants of any other statutory or regulatory requirements related to the project, including all full compliance with Chapter 91. Since the other conditions specifically included a request for permit for the dock and the dock is still in use, full certificate cannot be issued. The applicants may register. All right, so general conditions 1.
So that conflicts with this because the order conditions didn't specifically include a request for, or it didn't include a request for anything. The order conditions recognized that we did what we were told to do by both the town and the state. I'm just I have no idea what else to do here. Like, it's been 5 years.
All right, hold on, Steve.
Yeah. Sorry about that 5 years, definitely. No, I think what this is talking about is just the idea, the conditions that say that all work must be in compliance with all
All done.
State and local laws.
All done 5 years ago.
I don't know how I could be in any more compliance than I am right now.
Let me see if I can actually find those. General condition 1 and 2.
And as Meg pointed out, even that trench work has been done and signed off on.
Failure to comply with all conditions to, with all related statutes and other regulatory measures that we deem cause rule when after this order, and this order does not relieve the permit of any other all other applicable. Yeah, so 1 and 3 that they're referring to are under the just the general conditions in the order, and they basically fall under the idea of this project must abide by all other state and local laws to be issued, just so everybody understands where those conditions are coming from. It is a conundrum.
Is the applicant may request a certificate of compliance again in the future if they are able to demonstrate full compliance with Chapter 91. And I don't know what else we can do. And we now have, we've applied. I've been told that it's signed and ready to be mailed to us, but it's waiting for, something from the Conservation Commission. We frankly just don't trust anymore that we're going to get anything back from the DEP within a reasonable amount of time that this property owner is entitled to have. And there's nothing else before the Conservation Commission that suggests that they aren't in full compliance other than this dock fiasco.
Yeah. Well, again, my thoughts are that, I reach out to, is it Ms. Hobbs or Dobbs? And, tonight, the commission can vote tonight to have a letter prepared that addresses this whole thing, that addresses her question, which seems like it got addressed a long time ago, and she should have issued the permit.
But is
that's something we can certainly do.
Is that going to hold up the issuance of a certificate of full compliance? I can't think of any legal reason why. I'm welcome to be educated on it, but I don't think so.
Well, what do you think about what I guess this other, the partial certificate of compliance is referring to, which is just general conditions 1 and 2 that they need to be abiding by all state and local
I
law.
think we're being strung along. That's
Yeah.
all.
They are,
Honestly.
they have complied with those. They've applied for the permit as was required. You have before you an email, because I think I sent it to you, right, Beth? That's,
Yeah.
that says, I'm just waiting, it's signed and waiting to be sent. I'm waiting for a negative determination from the Conservation Commission. And
Yeah.
so that's out of our
I
hands.
mean, when we had our meeting in November of 2023, there was a discussion of just doing the full certificate of compliance, and we agreed in good faith to continue the conversation with the DEP. And here we are, 15 years later. I mean, months later, sorry, feels like it. But I mean, the point of the matter is, like, I really like, and I can sleep at night that we're abiding by the laws. I think we've done everything to meet general conditions 1 and 3, that we're following the laws. We've paid the money, we paid the fee for the public hearing, we did all of that, and we answered everyone's questions. And I just think that I don't know why. Why enough is enough, right? Like, I don't know how long you can keep it going, because now you're gonna correspond with Ms. Hobbs, and she's not timely. We've waited months for a response, and then it's been kicked to someone else. So we'd really just like to have the certificate of compliance.
Yes.
To keep this on a legal level and your role, we are in full compliance, and we'd like a certificate of that to us to certify that, so we can record it and move on. I'll continue to dance the dance with Ms. Hobbs, or you can join in the band. But in the meantime, we'd like to have that.
I guess what I'd like to do is, and I'll take comments from the commission absolutely on this, is so we're having a meeting on the 30th, which is supposed to just be for the regulations. But again, if I'll take the time between now and that meeting to either, if the commission would like to, put a letter together for Ms. Hobbs, or just communicate with her, make sure she has these order of conditions and certificate of compliance and understands that the commission voted on this already, and that we are, we certainly are fine with it under the Wetlands Protection Act. And then on the 30th, meet again about issuing the certificate of compliance. If you're willing to wait a few more weeks, and we'll give it one more try with Ms. Hobbs.
We've already given it 14 months and on almost 5 years. It's time. I don't see that. What's another month going to do, like, as far as this with the DEP? What's holding us up from being in compliance here? We've done everything, and as our attorney stated, that it's ready to go pending the negative determination that the Conservation Commission, and nobody on this current board, but that the town never complied with the law to get that done in 15 days. So I don't know how we're being held hostage by that.
Beth, if you don't mind, if I could suggest that if the commission's comfortable and you're comfortable, that you vote to give a certificate of compliance tonight. And you could also say that in that vote, you would you'll forward to the DEP and Ms. Hobbs verification of the negative determination, and that the town is fine with the dock, and then take it from there. But I'm just concerned that if we push this off another few weeks and you don't hear or have a response from Ms. Hobbs, if you send it in, then we're back here again, and these people are spending more money and more time, and the commission spending more time as I said, at a sojourn that's been going on nearly 5 years. So I think every commissioner, in their heart will know that this is it's fully in compliance. So that's.
Yeah, I guess I'm ready to take other commissioners' comments. Bob? Well, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Uh, quick question, you're seeking a certificate of compliance. Have you submitted a Form 8A for the COC?
I think we did last year in 2023.
2023, yes. And we were told that when we get our dock permit, that we don't even need a meeting, that we're gonna get this thing. And the state didn't give it to us because their reasoning is that the town never did their part of it. So I'm just it's not gonna end.
Well, the full story on that is that we sent it in, and it's been 2 years and we couldn't get a response out of them. So you sent it in, and now they're telling us the permit is signed and ready, but they're waiting again. So I hope that answers your question.
I think Bob's talking about the application for a certificate of compliance. So you applied before and you got a partial certificate of compliance.
Go back, and we were told we don't need to apply on anything else, that we're just gonna get our certificate of compliance after this, that it didn't even need a meeting. So I'm just I just want the certificate of compliance, please.
Mateo, can you take down what's on the screen so I can see people's faces? Thanks. Do any other commissioners have any thoughts on this? It's a bit of a conundrum, the circle kind of thing.
I'm inclined to think if there's any way we can give them their certificate of compliance, that we should try to do that. It seems like we've got a disconnect that isn't going to fix itself. No amount of talking back and forth has worked. They were promised something before. They've done everything they can do. Seems to me they've met all our requirements in reality. And if this helps them get their dock license finally sent to them, that would, just close the circle.
Have you talked with DEP, Beth, about it before? I'm just wondering, I'm thinking about your suggestion of having a conversation with them and seeing where we are. And that seems like a reasonable way forward. And I understand the frustration and the length of time that's taken. And, I don't know that 2 more weeks is going to make that situation any better or worse. But I do think having that conversation with DP seems like a no regret conversation in my mind.
The problem is we thought that in November of 23, and we had engaged with her and we were having a back and forth, and she went dark for like 4 months. And there's only one person, and then she lost her reviewer, and there's been this song and dance for 5 years.
We're also paying an attorney to help us along the way. So another 2 weeks isn't just 2 weeks. It's
and you're in a substantially same place. We've done everything to get the license. We're in compliance. So
Scott, if I could answer your question, I have had years ago, I had multiple questions with Ms. Hobbs, and then she did, then stopped returning my calls and stopped answering my emails. And then I renewed an effort and she's not returned any of my phone calls, but she did answer this email that I forwarded to Beth. But it just has the sense that, okay, it's the town's fault, it's not our fault. You need to get me something. And if you get me something, then I'll do something. Fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 19 times. I don't think it's fair, as Janice said, to ask these folks to wait another 2 weeks. Hope that the DEP does get back to us. Hope that, whatever they're looking for it when they get it is what they are, and they don't have a, some other reason, or they don't even respond to Beth or get back to us. The question before us, this is all hung up over a dock permit that was applied for, that the town was fine with the application and said it had no further comment. The rest of the project is in full compliance, which Ms. Hobbs and the boating division of the DEP, it's not boating, but it has nothing to do with it, and would have no say in whether or not full compliance should be issued by this commission. But at the risk of being ridiculous, Megan and Steve know better than anyone. I'm a lawyer, I bill them. I can pull out the list of times I have contacted them and written to them. And so you can sense their frustration because that's costing them money again.
Are you going early?
Yeah, I certainly sympathize with the proponents. The 91 doesn't require a certificate of compliance. It requires it requires an order of conditions. So right on the face of it, it seems odd that you're getting this pushback from the department. So I certainly have sympathy in this situation. That what you've stated the department has done doesn't make a tremendous a lot of sense to me.
Which is why I have no confidence, Beth, that if we wait 2 weeks and we send something that, something else isn't going to be made up, that we're missing this. I mean, their determination and stamina, Megan, Steve's commitment to do this right and to do it by the book and to get you everything you need is admirable. I think a lot of people would just have ignored you by this time and just gone ahead and suffer the consequences of not having a clean certificate of compliance. But they're rule followers. They're mindful of their obligations. This is a significant investment for them. They want to have their title clean, that they're in full compliance, and there's no reason that they aren't. So I'll renew my request that the board agreed or confirm tonight that they will issue a clean certificate of compliance for this property.
All right, if I don't see any more comments from the commission, Miriam, from the public, you have a comment?
Yeah, a couple of questions, and I'm just speaking here now, expressing my own opinions and not anyone else's. One of my questions is whether the commission has reached out to Mark Stinson for some assistance as the circuit rider, because he's often very helpful in smoothing out kinks in the DP system. And I suspect that he could get this process moving. The other thought I had was that perhaps a conference call with the applicants and the waterways program and maybe Beth and Mark Stinson, a conference call might also, resolve the issue. And then the third comment was that I believe the process when someone has been issued a partial certificate of compliance is that they need to submit a new Form 8A with the supporting documentation to show that they've met the remaining conditions. And then the commission has a 21-day window in order to either deny the request or grant it or modify it. And I believe that is under the state regs, as well as procedures that the commission's typically followed. So thank you.
So back in November, when I reached out for help, when my wife and I reached out for help to you, Miriam, for the dock permit back then, you told us to go to the Mass website and call the 1-800 number. So I just think that's kind of rich that now you're
yeah, we were offered zero assistance to collaborate to get the dock permit 14 months ago. So I think your comments are appreciated, but a little a little late in the game here. We again spent 14 months communicating to try to get them to give us the permit. In good faith, we accepted your proposal, which we disagreed with at the time, because our order of conditions said that we satisfied what was necessary and there were no further conditions from the Conservation Commission. So I think we have diligently pursued getting this permit, and we request our certificate of compliance. If we have to do the 14.8A, we're happy to do that. We would like it to be on record that the commission approves that we can have the certificate of compliance.
Hang on, we were told that we don't have to do any more paperwork, that this is gonna get issued. So I'll go back on that recording after this meeting and go through all that.
That was the Conservation Commission that told you you only
It
needed
was
to apply.
It was Miriam on that last November, 2023.
We agreed in good faith to continue conversations with the DEP to obtain our license. They have not responded until the point in which you received the email from Ms. Hobbs, and it's now putting it back on the Concom. So again, we've been circular for now an hour, it feels like, but fact of the matter is I, in good faith, can sleep at night, and I know that we've done everything to obtain that license. I don't know how else to get it, honestly.
So I also appreciate Miriam's comments, but I think calls with Mark Stinson and things like that sends shivers. I work well with Mark, but you have to go through this doc division, which he, if he can get her to call her back, that's fine, but that's just further delay in time. But more importantly, the last time Meg and Steve were communicated with this commission, they were told everything was in order. They would get their clearance, but they were waiting for the dock permit, and now the dock permit has arrived despite lots of effort. So I don't think they need to do anything else under the law or the regs. I think you can vote tonight to issue a clean certificate of compliance. I can assure you that Meg and Steve will continue to work and pursue the DEP to get that. And when they get the certificate of compliance, we'll record it and we'll send a copy to Ms. Hobbs, and maybe she'll release the license then. Maybe not. We may have to do something else, but we don't want the tail wagging the dog here. The certificate of compliance is, anyone who knows who owns property, is the most important thing, not the dock license at this point.
Kathy Salvador, you have your hand up?
No, sorry, I didn't think I had my hand up.
Oh, I think you have your
Hi, Kathy.
All right, I think we need to decide what we're gonna do here. I certainly feel bad for the applicant. I don't understand what's going on with DEP. There's a few things that are at play, which is that this partial certificate of compliance was issued, basically saying that they met all conditions of the order, except for the fact that they didn't have their Chapter 91 license yet. Therefore, they were given a partial. What they're asking for is now to have the complete one issued. They still don't have the Chapter 91 license, but in the end, they have certainly made a huge effort to try and get that. And then the other thing at play is whether or not they need to apply for the certificate of compliance, which seems like it would be a typical thing, but they're claiming also that the Conservation Commission previously told them that they did not need to reapply, that they applied and they got a partial, and they wouldn't need to reapply again to get a complete certificate. So I guess I'm just wondering again if the commission has any more thoughts on those two sort of decisions that we need to make.
I think somebody has to make the first step and break this circle. And I would motion that we vote to issue the certificate of compliance.
And how do you feel about us kind of voting to just I can write a letter that would go to Ms. Hobbs and send a letter saying that the commission feels that the order of conditions did look at the dock and there was, no impact to the wetlands, and we feel like the order of conditions already says that, that would be the communication I would send to her along with the order of conditions.
I mean, and I'd ask the homeowners to send us a copy of their dock license when it comes the week after.
Definitely.
You'll get it immediately when we get it.
I'll drive
it's
it, I'll drive
recorded
it
too.
over.
So there's a motion. Has there been a second? Beth?
Right.
I think it's more of a discussion. I'm not sure that was
Yeah.
quite a motion. Does anybody else have thoughts on those two things that we're trying to solve?
No, Janice made a motion.
I did.
Is there a second? All right, with no second, then the motion gets recalled or whatever happens to motions that don't get seconded. And does anybody have any more thoughts?
I do.
I-
Is there any legal
Wait,
force
I was
here,
actually
Jim, we
asking-
can just take?
let the commission speak, Steve.
Yeah, I'm asking the commission right now.
Yeah, I do. I absolutely empathize with the homeowners here. I do like the proposal, Beth, of writing the letter that I think would address from the commission's perspective that they've met these conditions and initiating the conversation with DEP. I may feel differently if DEP is not responsive to the commission and if the letter doesn't address the concern, then I think we might be in a different place in 2 weeks. But I do think having that as our next step makes sense to me. That's kind of where I'm at.
All right, Bob?
Yeah, I do think I agree with Scott. To me, it is odd and smells a little bit that the department requires a order of conditions, but doesn't need a COC to issue that waterways permit. So that is odd. Another thing that is odd is that the proponents could simply request a certificate of compliance from us in 8A. And I wasn't here. I can't represent what was said at a previous meeting. I haven't been able to find anything to that nature in the minutes. But very simply, an application for certificate of compliance, it's just a page, could be submitted to this commission. The commission would have to act on it. So
Why can't we make that? I've made that request verbally and we'll submit it. You're here tonight. You could vote on it subject to receiving it.
It has a fee that goes with it, and we'd have to receive the form and the fee.
We've paid thousands and tens of thousands of fees. Just this is another thing to just empty my wallet and just string this along for another year and a half.
Okay,
I
hold on.
don't know.
Oh, hold on, Steve. Steve, hold on. Go ahead, Ben.
That's just the typical process that,
But
there's a form.
5 years typical process.
You can condition the vote on receipt of the application and the fee.
Can I ask a question?
You can.
Sorry, thank you. Is it possible to go back to the minutes and to see where this all went wrong? And rectify it that way? I don't know whether that entails having them fill out another form and pay another fee, but if they, as they've stated that there were things that were stated at that time that were, and they went on kind of like a verbal honor system, then wouldn't that have been in the minutes from, would have been November of 2023? Isn't it possible to go back and look at what it states there and then discuss it again with the hope that this could all be worked out by the 30th,
Yeah, I guess I feel like, I understand that you guys have waited forever and ever and ever. But
How about we diligently pursue if that's necessary, but the commission agrees to issue a certificate of compliance, subject to the fee and the whatever that form is. That the spirit of the request is approved.
Because 2 more weeks, it's gonna be another excuse from either the commission or from the state.
And then you guys can diligently pursue with the DEP on our behalf, which we'd appreciate, but I need to know that there's a meeting of the minds here. Like it's been a very frustrating process, and we apologize for our frustration, but it's just, at some point, we need to get this ball rolling. And
Yes.
there's been, I think
Yeah,
Bob wants to talk.
I understand. I understand, but I guess my thought is also that the communication I got prior to tonight had no information in it about requesting a certificate of compliance. I thought we were coming tonight to talk about that DEP hadn't issued you your chapter 91, and that I saw the email from Ms. Hobbs that Jim had forwarded, and I thought tonight we were gonna, talk about what the commission needed to provide so that you would get your chapter 91. And I was certainly ready to vote on, having the commission have me communicate or put a letter together or something and get you everything that you need. That's what I thought we were talking about tonight. You guys show up asking for a certificate of compliance, having not told us you were going to, and also not filling out the form. And, Jim knows that you needed, if that was what you were planning to do tonight, there should have been a little bit more prep for that, I guess is one point to be made. So I do really think we need to wait 2 weeks. We need the application for the certificate of compliance and the fee. And in 2 weeks, we will meet again, and I will reach out to Ms. Hobbs and make sure she has all the information that she needs.
We already paid the fee.
That
Submitted
anybody
that.
who,
I'm going back through the video and I'll send a link to it
Okay.
with the timestamp, and you can watch that.
okay,
Thank you.
that's fair. That's fair. But I think those are the things that we need to accomplish before the 30th. Bob, you have your hand up?
Yeah, and again, I apologize to the proponents. Remember, 3 of us are new to the commission. I have every wish to accelerate this as quickly as possible and move you through the system. And I think Beth's proposal to reach out directly to the state is a good one, because if you do have a valid order, and if that's all that's holding it up, that should get you moving. If you're seeking a certificate of compliance, I'd recommend that you do that application for that. And honestly, I would like to see this move through quickly, and I don't think it will take a tremendous amount of time doing that 2-prong approach.
Yeah.
We'll get these application in immediately. It's a
Great.
one-page application, so that there won't be any. But I think we made it clear that this is form over substance, because they're in total compliance, but we will dot the I.
Can we get something in the minutes that says we will be issued a certificate of compliance next meeting?
No, we need to have the application to make that kind of a vote. And I need to reach out to Ms. Hobbs. So
We're never getting this deed cleared, are we?
Steve, hold on, Steve. Just hold on. We'll work with the commission. 2 weeks is 2 weeks. But I can assure you, if we don't have an answer in 2 weeks, it'll be a different.
3 weeks.
I agree. I think in 2 weeks we'll have more information and we're going to be able to solve it. I'm convinced. But thank you very much for coming, sharing your story. And I didn't know about any of these things. So I really hope that in 2 weeks we can straighten this all out.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Michael, thank you for hanging on. You're used to long meetings, right? This is your thing.
I haven't been in a long meeting for a while. It's bringing back all those memories of school committee. So do you want me to go, or you want to check in with everybody?
I think how does everybody feel? Everybody's ready to move on, right? Get through this meeting. So yeah.
I'm ready for some good news, Mike.
Yeah, please say you're here.
Bob, you're not going to get it. unfortunately. So Beth asked me to speak to you guys. I have a couple of slides because I think it'll just be visually helpful, but the premise is, I don't, if everyone knows that the state in November approved a new clean energy law. It was a long time coming. It didn't get completed during the regular session. It happened after July when it was sort of informal, but it impacts all of us. And so, you know, the presumption is it's mostly the planning board, but it really is not. So Beth, if you don't mind, I'll just share my screen
Yep,
for a couple slides. Cool.
sounds great.
Where the hell did it go? Oh, hold on. I'm staring at you guys. Give me 1 second here. Oh, you've been through enough pain. I don't want to mess up technology wise for you. Okay, share. Where the hell is it? God. Damn. Okay, well, that's not going to work, so I'm not sure why that's not working. Hold on. Damn. And if it doesn't work, I'll just talk, because that's clearly be easier.
See if I have.
Hey, Mateo,
Yep.
if it doesn't work, in 1 second, if you don't mind sharing on my behalf, that would be cool. And I'll take you up on your previous offer.
Good.
Yeah. Oh, here, I got it.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay. So, and I'll do this quickly just to sort of, so you can talk, so you guys can see this?
Not yet.
Nope.
No. Oh, no.
Oh,
Oh,
it's,
yeah,
oh,
there
no,
it is.
it's
Yep.
there. Here's
You
load.
got it? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the clean energy law. It's officially with Senate 2967, came out in November, and the whole idea is to deal with clean energy. So time-wise, the premise to know is that it goes into effect on March 1st, 2026. So they got that time to figure it out. So between now and then, it's the status quo. What it does, it's important, is they defined clean energy projects to be two things. Solar and wind is one category, which is that first block, and then energy storage, i.e. batteries, is the second block. And clean energy projects for solar and wind are under 25 megawatts. And for batteries, it's under 100 megawatts. There's another category which we don't have to deal with, which is large clean energy projects, and those go directly to the state. But these smaller ones go to municipalities. So in that regard, it's similar. And currently, there's no projects that are that size in terms of solar in the state. So the entity that's going to figure out this regulations for all of us is DOER. And you'll see with these bullets the four things that they do. So they're going to come up with standards around zoning for public health, safety, and environmental standards. They're going to come up with a common application which affects all of us. So I can circle back to that if we have questions. They're going to come up with uniform pre-filing requirements, and then they're going to come up with standards for site suitability. And I think at this point, they've done none of it officially. They're just creating the division who's going to be dealing with it. So the question everyone really wants to know is, you know, do municipalities retain or lose their ability to permit locally? That's sort of been the big question at hand. And it's a yes and a no. So the yes is that municipalities, for things that are small energy projects, municipalities will continue to permit. And importantly, the law doesn't take away local bylaws, whether it's the zoning bylaws, you know, our local wetlands bylaw, as long as it complies with what DOER comes up with. So it's DOER is gonna trump stuff, but if there's things that that are not in conflict, then ours would be fine. What we lose in terms of permitting is that we do have to comply with all the DOER standards. So if there's a difference, if their standards are going to trump ours. And then there's an appeal process, which is interesting, which basically if a developer does not like the decision that the locality makes, then it can appeal to the state. And I'm not a lawyer, but I've learned what de novo decision making is, which I really don't like. And de novo is basically saying you look at it as new. So if the planning board went through a permitting process and got all this information, you guys did your due diligence. If we gave them a response that the developer didn't like, they would go to the state as if nothing happened. They'd start from scratch. So that's interesting. The consolidated permit is really, I think, where the rubber hits the road. What DOER and the state, basically, including the legislature, basically decided is that clean energy deployment in Massachusetts is going slow because there's too much permitting and bureaucracy at the state, so prior conversation excluded. The assumption is you got Concom's, you got ZBAs, you got planning boards, you got boards of health. Everyone's got their own process and it's mucking up the work. So what they're requiring is that there be a consolidated permit from each municipality for each project. One might say, is there a plan for that? And there's no current process for consolidating this. So I think that's really one of the challenges. I was on a webinar today with Undersecretary at EEA, and this is one of the slides that he shared. So what they're seeing now is like if you have a small project, which is on the left, that it goes to the zoning process, it goes to the DOT, it goes to wetlands, and everyone has their separate processes. And then this diagram on the right, they sort of see it as it comes to the town, it gets divvied up, and then on the far end at the bottom over here comes out a consolidated decision. So that's sort of their vision, but they don't have a process for it yet. One of the things that's important that I worry about that I think we're all going to have to just sort of track is that if, say, a solar developer, and I don't know, like I know, Bob, you're sort of, from what I heard, you live out east, but you've sort of been, doing stuff here. So I don't know how much you've been tracking this, but we have 5 large-scale solar projects that are off in the horizon. They haven't officially applied yet, but it's been like at least 3, maybe 4 years where they've been talking about doing this. So there's a reality that this could be coming to us. But a municipality has 30 days to determine if an application is complete. These are big, complex things. So that would be the Concom deciding if it's complete, the planning board, Board of Health, if that's required. And then all together, we have to decide in 30 days if it's complete or not. And then all told, we have 12 months to make a decision. And that's for all the different committees, whether we have our own processes or not, we have to come together. And I just sort of did a look at, what your guys' process is for the Concom. And, just looking at the bottom, and you know this better than I, and I try really hard to follow the wetlands procedures to understand them, but I find them really confusing. But you have a whole bunch of, days and requirements for different things. So does the planning board. And so they're all different, but they're supposed to come out at the end of the process at 12 months with commonality. So there's this concept of constructive approval. I don't know, Beth, do you guys have that for Concom's constructive approval? So
No.
So the idea of constructive approval is that if there's an official body that has to provide a permit and it doesn't take action in the designated time, then it's officially approved. And so normally what ends up happening, like if there was a constructive approval now, like if the planning board didn't act in a timely basis, whatever the proposal was to the planning board, it would get approved as proposed, which usually is not what you want. I think the legislature was at least smart enough to realize that that's not preferable. So what they're going to come up with as in the next year and few months is to come up with common conditions. So if Shutesbury, all of our committees working together could not come up with a decision within 12 months timeframe, the project would be constructively approved, and then DOER will have pre-established conditions that would kick in. I'm assuming that would be also, for planning board zoning special permit, but it'd also be for wetlands, et cetera. So like everyone, and that's my sense is that a lot of this thinking has been more focused on planning boards and zoning and, not so much wetlands. So that's just my hunch. I don't see the state using that language. And I got two more slides just really quickly. So my concern is the consolidated process is untested. So it's not designed yet. What I've heard this morning, which is sort of confirming the concern, is that there's sort of be a checklist. So like we would all, as town of Shutesbury, would get a application for a solar project or a wind project or a battery project. Collectively, we'd have 30 days to figure out it's complete, and then we'd have 12 months to do it. And at the end of the day, there'd be a sheet, and Beth could sign off for the planning board, for the Concom after you guys vote and say, we approve. And the planning board could do, we approve. And the Board of Health could say, we approve. And that would be the easy part if we did it in 12 months. If one of us said we didn't approve, they don't know what to do. So, then the town would be saying no. And then there'd be an appeal. And so that's sort of crazy. And then the last thing, on the quote unquote good news, what both the legislature and the administration said is that they've heard from a lot of towns that we don't have the capacity to deal with these complex projects. And so if we didn't want to take it on and we said, this is too much for our little town, we have 60 days to ask the state to do it for us. So we can just sort of punt and have the state do it. So that's sort of the whole short version of it. So I'll just stop sharing. I think just the things that I wanted to share, with you all, is a lot of this. I mean, it's just starting to get communicated out, but it's going to get designed in the next year, next 14 months. How the Concom works with the planning board, works with the Board of Health to sort of do this. Like we can have our separate lanes, but within a 12-month time frame. Like I just think about, when you've gone and got I'm forgetting the woman's name who does all the sort of the delineations.
If we have, right, if we get a third party to do a delineation, it can take a long time.
Right, and same with us. Like when we did the Wheelock solar thing, we had a consultant look at the storm water. So, first you have to agree that you want to do that. Then you have to do a scope of work for the consultant. Then you have to have them do the work. Then they have to report to you. Then if you have questions, they have to go back and redo the report. So, that could take months. So it's a little concerning. And like I said, it feels like they've really been focused on planning boards and, the whole wetlands process. And I get, between ANREDs and NOIs and delineations and, all of the world that you guys live in, I don't know how much, because the timing's different for us. Like we'll get a special permit and then we have a certain period of time. Wheelock took 2 years. So, so it's mostly of a concern. And do you guys have questions? I'll just shut up.
I have a lot of questions. One big one for me is that wetlands, I think sometimes compared to planning and ZBA and other groups, is so tied to the state in terms of the forms that we use and the fees that we pay, and that the DEP reviews all of our applications. Is any of that stuff going to continue? Are they going to have their own forms? Like what's going to happen with fees and what's going to happen with DEP and getting a say on the wetland side of these consolidated applications? It seems crazy, but whatever.
Yeah, well, I think I have a partial answer. I mean, on the one hand, DOE is supposed to come up with all the standards. The thing that it says in the language is that the consolidated permit will be for all permits that are required at either state or municipal level. So like if DEP was supposed to have a permit that you guys were tied into somehow, that would be part of the consolidated.
Oh, so they're going to take the existing kind of permitting method and just bring it together with the other. They're not actually like creating new applications and stuff like that.
I think in my mind, I think of a piece of paper with these check boxes. So if the Concom had a checkbox to say we approve or not, and the planning board did, and the Board of Health did, maybe DEP has one too. How you guys coordinate with DEP, you know, so that they can check it off. But the developer is supposed to walk away with this one thing that says, I got everybody's input. And the appeal process is that the, the appeal process goes to one person, the director of this division at the Energy Facility Siting Board. So if the developer doesn't like it, they, you know, we're all involved in the front end. And then if they don't like it, they go to one person who looks at everything anew and makes a decision.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's
Todd,
weird.
looks like you're thinking. It's, and, you
Michael,
know, yeah.
sorry, Michael, one quick question. And then that person is the person that they appeal to, and that becomes a de novo? It starts from the beginning, is that what you said before?
Yeah, it's the director of this new division at EFSB, but it's a de novo one. Which, I mean, I've been arguing, even if we get an appeal, it seems like the two benefits of not having it be de novo is that you have a more informed decision because we could forward all the information that we've gathered during the process. And two, you would think that it'd be less expensive because it's duplicative if it starts de novo. You know, they gotta. So,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's necessarily faster. But I've raised it with Joe Comerford, I've raised it with EEA, I've raised it with DOER. I don't think anyone really wanted to change that. It's they had their, I think the takeaway was municipalities are the barrier to the rollout of clean energy in Massachusetts. And because we have our little committees doing our little processes that we've been sort of mucking up the works. So they're trying to unmuck it, but so I'm assuming like, in the wetlands world, there might be conversations, with the Concom Association or whatever it is, but it's mostly a heads up that like no one has created this process. I don't think there's a lot of answers at this point. I sent in actually to EEA on Monday a whole list of all the criteria that, from a zoning perspective, that Shutesbury, the regional planning agency, is a bunch of municipalities would expect just to sort of start the process, because I don't think anyone really knows at the municipal level much of this stuff. They just sort of have a high level understanding. So it's unfortunately not very good news. But I think for us, if not other towns, just not being flat-footed, and if we can inform it, and like I'm trying to inform the state of like what it really looks like on the ground. And if you guys felt like there's a way to do that as well, that's probably beneficial. Because I don't.
Well, I can check in and see what MACC is doing. They're kind
Yeah.
of like the state group that would, in a way, probably take comments from a bunch of towns and bring them forward. I can check in and see. But yeah, I'm also interested, like where they're going to provide information on like site suitability. Does that mean that they're going to actually put out there, like almost limit what we can condition with the things when this is all final and they have how it's all supposed to happen? Is it also going to come with not only a thing like you're saying that's like a checklist, but also a list of like, you can't condition this, you can't not allow this, you can't, is that what's going to be in there too?
It might be. So, without getting too wonky, I'll just say that, so current state law in zoning, it's from 1985. It's called the solar exemption. And, so there's certain things in municipalities are limited to prohibiting. So like religious institutions, schools, things like that, towns have limits. And one of them is solar and it came from 1985. And that was before photovoltaics were commercially available. So it was really designed about, if you live in Wellesley and someone put a solar hot water heater on their roof, and you didn't like it and said it was ugly, that the town didn't say we want it. So but it's been there. And the effect is that municipalities are limited in what they can regulate. So Shutesbury has passed 4 solar bylaws, and they have to go through the Attorney General to get approved. The Attorney General rejected our 2023 one, and we're getting sued on our 2021 for similar reasons, even though it is public health, welfare, and safety. So I think to get to your question, Beth, is like, what they designed is in the law. They knew that this was an irritant for municipalities, and they said, if municipalities comply with the standards that DOER establishes, then municipalities are considered to be complying with the solar exemption. So you can regulate as long as it's DOER approved regulations. And so my sense is, from a wetlands perspective, if DOER said, you know, these are the things that you can say yes or no to, then it's allowable. And if there's something out of that, you know, those bounds, I think we'd run into trouble, is my hunch. In terms of site suitability, the state last year, DOER put out this report. It was the technical potential of solar siting, but it basically looked at every parcel in the Commonwealth and graded them on 6 criteria about where solar would be good. So there was slope, there was closeness to interconnection, there was wetlands, there was forests, and they graded it A, B, and C. And so there's every parcel in the state has a marking. And so I think what I've advocated for is that they use that for now, you know, and basically say, if it's got a C, it shouldn't be cited there. If it's got an A, you know, and maybe some Bs. But again, I think they're sort of thinking zoning and they're not thinking wetlands when they think about site suitability. So it feels like there's a blind spot when it comes to wetlands. Like, they know wetlands are an issue, but I don't think they've looked at it
Yeah.
deeply in that regard for delineations.
Yeah, no, they haven't, I guess I would feel like they haven't necessarily come out and maybe tried to control as much the wetlands so much as some of the planning. And what they've done is, in the Wetlands Protection Act, is given some exemptions to solar projects, but people still have to apply. And they have to just use those exemptions for, you know, access roads to solar facilities and things like that. But I still feel like the commissions have still had the power to look over those applications, and certainly have the power to look at the particular site. And, you know, so we haven't been very restricted, I guess, yet, but I'm worried that this is going to be much more, you know, taking away some of our power to protect the wetlands. But
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of the rub, you know, it's sort of, we're closer to the ground, so, you know, you would do the due diligence because it's in the town. But I think they see that as slowing down the process. And so I think you're right to be concerned. I wish I had answers about like how it's going to play out, because I don't know. And I'm surprised, like, is DEP is sort of the regulatory agency that looks at wetlands?
yeah,
So I don't know the relationship of DEP and DOER. You know, like, I'm assuming DEP would have a conversation and say, these are our wetlands regulations and our wetlands procedures. And as you develop the official procedures, you should take these into account. I have not heard DEP mentioned once in all the webinars that I've talked about. So that doesn't
state
bode well.
agencies just don't like to talk to each other.
Yeah. So I think, you know, as you know, if it's helpful, as I learn more, I definitely can forward it to you. But it's
Yeah, please.
huge. Yeah, it's so huge and has such ramifications. And I mean, the idea of like trying to get our committees to work together. I mean, I think individually as in a town, we could do that, but we have to know how we're supposed to do it. You know, like, what's the timing? How does it work? How do you document? This is my favorite one, and then I'll shut up. So the undersecretary today said that he envisioned that the way the consolidated process would work is that there would be one person basically tagged at each municipality to receive the proposal, and then that person would distribute it out to the appropriate committees. And my first thought, as Mateo knows, is like, on the zoning board, the only way that a project is officially submitted for a special permit is when you present it to the planning board, you know, and there's a procedure defined in state law for doing that. So giving it to the town administrator, who would be the logical person who would then distribute it out, it's not an official submission. You know, so just tweaking MGL around that for us. And I'm assuming there's got to be similar things in terms of, like the whole form you were talking about. There's now forms that people have to submit to the Concom to start the process, to, facilitate the communications. They haven't, I don't think they know that stuff yet. So
Well, and
anyway,
then those things, I'm assuming a lot of those things are very similar Concom to Concom because of the State Wetlands Protection Act, which is so detailed about, if an applicant submits something, you almost want to stamp it the day that they drop the hard copies off because you got 21 days to open a public hearing. And in Amherst, that's what we used to do, is we literally stamped it with a date, so we knew. But I don't know if that's the same. I think for Concoms, it's the same across the state, but what you're saying right there, and I wonder, like with planning boards and ZBAs to do across the state, do they all follow the same processes of exactly what you're talking about when
yeah,
something?
I think they are the same across like planning boards, but I don't know. I have a feeling that planning board compared to Concom compared to Board of Health are different. And
Yeah.
so that's lining those up somehow to make sure that everyone's got the thing in time for their own compliance. It's going to be tricky. It might be doable. I think it'll have to be doable, but paying super attention to it. And it's, for other towns, it might not be an issue immediately because they might not have any solar on the horizon. But like I said, we got 5. I mean, 5 at one time, even without this. Yeah, it's, it makes your head explode. So.
That would be a lot. Poor Mateo. We got 5 at once. Poor Mateo.
I know. Well, I'm glad Mateo was there. So, anyone else have any questions? Mayor, any questions or Scott? Cool.
Now, I noticed that while it does say that it says local government shall determine whether the project application is complete no later than 30 days of receipt. And if it's incomplete, the applicant has 30 days to correct that deficiency before the application is rejected. And it also does say that if it is incomplete, the local government can give additional time to correct those deficiencies. So that's one of the things I just saw that that you were citing, Michael.
Yeah,
And
I think the issue is just like we all have to know, like we have to get it. And so, like if the town administrator gets it, and that's the official acceptance, then they have to get it to Beth, and they have to get it to Nathan, and the 30-day clock happens. So it's sort of it's knowing that they're not giving us a lot of time because they want to push these things through in a timely manner.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
yeah.
So they have until March 1st to figure this all out, 2026.
Yeah, yeah.
To figure it
Yeah,
out.
and as of Monday, they put out the posting for the director of this division. So they're staffing up. They haven't quite,
Did you apply? Just kidding.
I did volunteer to be on the search committee. I don't know if they let regular people do that, but I thought, it'd be nice to have a municipal perspective. Maybe get
Yeah.
someone who understands what the pain will be like on the front lines. So
Good for you. Bob, you have your hand up?
Yeah, Michael, you've been on the planning board, right?
about 7 years or so, 7 or 8. I can't keep
Yeah,
track.
yeah. And did you kind of feel like the whole 40B process where, hey, this is something different. It's not gonna follow your regular track. It's gonna come in and be decided by ultimately you put in input, but it's decided by somebody else. Did you get that kind of vibe from it?
Um, sort of, yeah. I mean, on the one hand, it's very clear that they want to move this thing forward and they don't want to get stuff put in the way, On the other hand, I don't think they know the details. So there's a high level intention of like, we're just going to make this happen because these municipalities have to get in line, We're going to tell them what it is. On the other hand, they don't know what the there is. It's, I think that's the challenge. And yeah, the overriding impression I gotten from listening, way back with the legislators, and it's Senator Barrett, who's the Senate co-chair, and then Senator Roy, Rep. Roy. I think they really just see us, municipalities as pesky, the fact that we're doing due diligence slows it down. And don't we know there's a climate crisis? And just like,
Yeah,
yes,
oh
we
yeah.
do. So that's my sense.
That was my impression too. It's kind of like, we're doing progress here. Why are you slowing it down? Okay, all right. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that candor.
Yeah. That's all I got with these guys is candor. So
I don't
happy to
know.
share.
Thank you for the presentation. That was a lot of good information, and we're just gonna have to keep an eye on it, and I will see what MACC is up to with, maybe like you said, providing, at this point, it's been voted on.
Oh, yeah.
But is there a way, I guess, for like a group like MACC to still provide comments that will be listened to?
Yeah. Oh, well, I think, so it's approved as a law, but it's all the high level stuff. And so the regulations haven't been developed. So, DOER is going to be the go-to. They're going to make the standards. But I think, like I was mentioning, I think either, it's MACC, is that what it is? The MACC is talking to DOER or talking to DEP and saying, you guys have to like get our world into this discussion because there's no regs. So right now they're at the designing regs. It's pre-designing reg stage. So this is exactly the time to sort of share information and say, how are they going to do this? How are they going to be thinking about wetlands? This is what we usually do. Do you guys get that? And then, I keep thinking about like, I remember with Wheelock, there was consultation between the planning board and the Concom. And you guys went out and looked at stuff and came back and said, this is what we think, which made a lot of sense. But it was sort of informal. It wasn't the formal procedures, and that took, time. So it's both how these things get knit together, but then also the context of 12 months. Because if it's constructively approved, it gets back to your question about what will be in there as a common condition, in terms of the wetlands. I don't think it'll be site specific because it can't be, because it's supposed to be universal across the Commonwealth. So what would they put in, in a protective nature? It's hard to know. So I think those are the inputs. It's like, okay. I can go on forever, but I'll just give you this as a good example, and then you can go finish your meeting. So Senator Barrett got the constructive approval was an issue, and he realized 12 months there will be constructive approvals that happen. And the solution is in the law that every quarter DOER will review how many projects get constructively approved in the state. And after 2 years of tracking that, they will report on it. And then the state will have 6 months to evaluate what they should do and make recommendations to change it. So if there's all these constructive approvals that happen because, 12 months is actually too short of a time to do this elaborate process, we're going to have 2.5 years of constructively approved projects. So knowing what the automatic conditions are will be really important, because I'm assuming there's going to be a high percentage, I don't know, it's 10%, 20%, but there'll be projects that are constructively approved. And so that's sort of the second part of like, okay, if we assume that'll happen, making sure the conditions in those instances are actually protective in nature and make sense on the ground. So that's my final thing. So I'll let you guys go. You've had a long night, but good seeing you all.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks
Take
a lot.
care.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. I think the night is done. Unless anybody has anything else to say that was interesting. Let's have a motion to adjourn.
Can I ask a question?
Yes. Oh, you
So,
froze. Oh.
Oh, I'm froze. So I think I know the answer because but when we're looking at the regulations, we're just coming back to the meeting to just verbally say what our suggested or changes that we would like as to the regulations, or should we
Yeah, I
be
guess,
putting them in the comment section? I think it was half and half last time, and
yeah, so that,
just
yeah,
kinda-
that sort of changed since the way my plan originally. Um, so I'm not gonna share the document anymore, just to go the easiest way to avoid open meeting law, basically.
Right.
So I think I'll send out, because I stopped sharing, so I'll send out the current version of the regulations. You guys go through it. If you're comfortable sending me individually your comments on it, but don't, just directly to me, don't share with anybody else in the
Okay.
commission.
Yep.
Then I will go through the document and make those changes and mark them who they're from. So
Okay.
that then when we come to the meeting next time, we've got a document that has all those comments in it, and then we'll just go through those sections and talk about each of everybody's comments
Okay.
that way. Otherwise, if you don't feel comfortable sending it to me, then your comments can just be brought up verbally at the meeting. It's your
Okay.
choice.
That's okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Sure. All right, motion to adjourn.
I so move.
I'd
Second.
like to second that.
All right, Con,
Aye.
Douglas,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Rowan,
Aye.
and Wilson. Aye. Thank you, everybody, for staying
Thank
late.
you.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
All right, good night.
Good night.